Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed forecast update for January 24th, 2025 rather. We've got a lot to get through today, including showers and thunderstorms expected across the southeast of Queensland, heavy to torrential rainfall expected across Queensland's far north and central coast, 2 tropical lows forecast to develop somewhere in the Coral Sea or the Gulf of Carpentaria too. We'll touch on the WA tropical cyclone threat and also the heatwave down in the southwest corner of Western Australia finally starting to pack it up. So all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you're brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things on your Friday morning. Up in the far north of Queensland, significant severe weather expected up there over the next 7 days, and an awful lot of rainfall is going to be coming through post-Australia Day, so let's touch on that right now. As I said, that significant weather coming through from Australia Day, but up until then there's not a whole lot expected either in the way of showers or thunderstorms. You can see the Cassowary coast looking high and dry, a few thunderstorms possible here and there into the central regions sometime tomorrow afternoon down around Maxwellton and Hewend, and a couple of good thunderstorms also possible up the Cape York Peninsula, and then the rainfall will begin to pipe up, starting in sort of shower bands and sort of shower fronts that are going to be moving through from early Sunday morning, but then that will turn into pretty consistent, pretty steady rainfall from later Sunday evening onwards. So showers and storms expected on Sunday to bring in this rainfall here, and that's going to start off and it's going to get heavy pretty quickly. Sunday I'm expecting a lot of places to be getting 50 to 80 millimetres across the Cassowary coast, especially between Ingham and Innisfail. The rainfall won't be penetrating too far inland. It also won't be happening too far north or south either. It's kind of going to be exclusive for locations between Innisfail and Ingham, maybe extending a little bit further north up through Bellenden, Kerr and Fishery Falls, those sort of areas, but definitely no further from Cairns. There will be some showers here and there, but the bulk of the rainfall will be in this area here. Now I'm going to switch the forecast over to the Axis forecast model. I find that the Axis has absolutely nailed the forecast on events like this over the last couple of years, and it's continuing to nail them as well right up to today. So I think the Axis forecast is going to be the most reliable here, and it's also really doing a good job at picking up what rainfall is going to be coming through here. So significant steady streams of rainfall streaming through. It's going to start to intensify quite dramatically on Sunday night. It's also going to be coming through in these two stages. The first stage being a more southerly focused band, and the second stage being a more northerly focused band, a little bit more associated with the tropical low. So keep that in the back of your head. Now the first stage like we're talking about right now coming through on Sunday afternoon, bringing in the moderate to heavy falls starting Monday morning between Cardwell up to Cairns. You can see really heavy falls expected around the Tully and Innisfail area, and I feel like this is a much more accurate representation of the rainfall that's going to be coming through. If you contrast this with the Eastern Bear forecast model, I mean, the difference is stark. It is the Axis actually calling for reasonable numbers up here. Still, I do believe that the Axis forecast is underestimating that, and I would just like to make that point pretty clear that this is still an underestimation and probably on the lower side of what rainfall is expected, especially for some of the locations around Innisfail and Tully. As you can see, that rainfall continuing, getting really heavy Monday night. In fact, it will be torrential Monday night into early Tuesday morning, especially around midnight. We're looking at these really heavy falls through here. We'd be seeing rainfall rates up in above 50 millimetres an hour sustained for pretty much the whole night, Monday night into Tuesday morning. So expect to wake up to some big puddles around the Cassowary coast, Tully and Innisfail, up towards Bellenden, Kerr, and even as far north as Cairns. Expect to wake up to some really big puddles and some minor riverine flooding on Tuesday morning, because there will be some big time rainfall accumulations in those rain gauges. And I would not be surprised if overnight totals on Monday night were amounting to 2 or 250 millimetres, and probably even a little bit more in some of these locations here. We're talking about 50 millimetres an hour sustained for an entire night, so some significant falls are expected. You'll also be able to notice moderate falls offshore from Cairns and moderate falls extending around the Port Douglas and Mossman area on Tuesday morning as well. Now the rainfall is going to ease off temporarily on Tuesday. It's still going to be moderate at times across the Cassowary coast and some heavy showers expected here and there, but it will be temporarily easing off a little bit. It'll then pipe up again later on Tuesday afternoon and into Tuesday night. Torrential again Tuesday night into Wednesday morning along the Cassowary coast, and heavy to torrential at times between Port Douglas and Wudgel. Good falls also expected adjacent to the Cairns area. I think the forecast right now that we're looking at for Cairns is a little bit off at this time. I think that Cairns will actually pick up a lot more rainfall, and a lot more steady rainfall than what the forecast is actually suggesting. Cairns normally gets residual stuff from weather events like this, but the only thing that's telling me that Cairns isn't going to be picking up tremendous rainfall accumulations is look at the direction of the winds here. They're going to be coming in from the southeast. Now that's perfect for locations between Cardwell up to Innisfail. They're going to be bombarded with rainfall. Not so much between Innisfail and Cairns though. Normally they do receive the bulk of the rainfall in a weather event like this, but I think the rainfall totals there are going to be a little bit more tame, but especially around South Mission Beach and Tongue Oil Alert, those are the two observations that normally stand out for me, that pick up the tremendous rainfall accumulations that are monitored by the Bureau of Meteorology. They're going to be picking up some tremendous rainfall accumulations. There's kind of no two ways about it right now. Tully and Innisfail especially as well. But Cairns, they're slightly protected by some mountains adjacent to the coastline just towards the southeast of them, and considering the winds are going to be coming in from the south to the southeast for the majority of this rainfall, event, it does look like Cairns is semi-protected. Not the same story though for Port Douglas and the Daintree rainforest. They're exposed once again, and as such they are expecting those moderate heavy falls there. The intense rainfall continuing through Wednesday morning. It does ease off temporarily early Wednesday afternoon. You can see that heavy falls still lingering here and there on Wednesday. And then we start to see this tropical low develop offshore, and this is right on time with where it was yesterday, and the other forecast models also now starting to jump behind this system here. The EastModBev calling for a very broad low pressure system to be developing, but between the GFS forecast model and the Axis forecast model, I do believe that sometime late Wednesday or early Thursday, the 29th or the 30th of January, we're going to see a tropical low develop somewhere offshore between Cooktown and Cardwell. Most likely between Cooktown and Cairns, we'll likely see this tropical low develop here, and that will once again intensify the rainfall rates across the North Queensland coastline. It's also going to be bringing in a lot of residual rainfall further towards the south, so from the inflow bands piping up Wednesday around lunchtime, we'll likely see some heavier falls developing south of Cardwell through Townsville and even down towards Bowen on the Whitsundays, but it doesn't look like it's going to be making it too much further south than that. This tropical low will then continue to intensify, and this is the second band of rainfall that's going to be coming through that's a little bit more up in arms on the forecast this time. The heavy falls piping up again across the Cassowary coast on Thursday, and then steady falls across the North Queensland, even parts of the central Queensland coastline as well, piping up through Thursday and Friday. As this low pressure system develops, the rainfall will continue to be funneled ashore across the Queensland coastline, and then depending on the track that this system takes, whether it goes offshore or goes onshore, is going to have a massive impact on what rainfall is actually expected to happen across North Queensland, and also in terms of a tropical cyclone impact, because it's also looking highly likely that this system does actually attain tropical cyclone status. If it does, it's going to be in the dying hours of January and into the first couple of days of February. It really is dependent on where this system tracks, and it looks like it's going to be paralleling the Queensland coastline far enough offshore as to where it's not a problem in terms of wind, and it's just going to be funneling through some big swells, some big waves, and some gusty showers here and there that will deliver some significant rainfall accumulations across the North Queensland and then eventually onto the central Queensland coastline. Looking forward beyond about Saturday or Sunday, the 1st and 2nd of February, the forecast is still a little bit inconsistent here, and there's not really many conclusions that we can draw from the forecast, at least at this time here, so the future of this tropical low / tropical cyclone is still remaining very uncertain at this time. But one thing's for sure, if it does develop off the North Queensland coastline, regardless, they're going to get another burst of rainfall on Thursday and Friday. So just to recap on that, heavy falls expected to pipe up from Sunday onwards, and they're going to persist right into the first week of February. But the worst of the rainfall will be coming through Monday night into Tuesday morning, stopping about Tuesday midday, and then again Wednesday, right through Wednesday and into Thursday morning, there's going to be heavy falls once again. And all of this rainfall is going to really quickly add up. Let's just take a look at week-long rainfall accumulations between Sunday and Sunday. You can see these are 7-day rainfall accumulations here between the 26th and the 2nd of February, and there are some big-time accumulations, that's for sure. Starting from the north and heading south, Cooktown's going to be on the northern extremities of where the peak of the rainfall is going to be. They're expecting about 100 millimetres there offshore. I do believe that they're going to get all of that 100 millimetres. And then Woodgill, Mossman and Port Douglas, I'd be expecting up to about 2 or 250 millimetres of those locations. Depending on the nature of where this tropical low does develop, if it's a little bit closer to the coastline, they'll likely pick up substantially more rainfall, probably up towards 400 or 500 millimetres there. And I do still expect 1 or 2 locations in the Daintree rainforest to be picking up 400 or 500 millimetres from this weather event here, but Port Douglas and Woodgill should be remaining on those sort of the more moderate side of falls here between 50 and 80 millimetres a day, amounting to about 200 or 250 millimetres over this week-long rainfall event. Now, Cairns is the wild card in the forecast here. You can see on this forecast only suggesting 30 millimetres coming through for Cairns, and whilst that's true for locations further inland, I don't really expect an awful lot of rainfall for Mareeba or Atherton. I don't expect down to 15 millimetres there. I do definitely reckon that they're going to get a couple of 100 millimetres out there, and same deal with Cairns. I'm expecting about 250 millimetres, but it does give you an idea that this rainfall will be swinging in from the southeast, so don't expect too much in Cairns, and anything over about 100 millimetres is certainly going to be bonus rainfall, and it's all going to be caught, and the clouds are going to be wrung dry basically by the North Queensland coastline, the Cassowary coastline especially, and for locations between Cairns down through Innisfail, Tully, Cardwell down to Ingham, and even as far south as Townsville, some really good rainfall is expected. And I mean, I've said that time and time again, but on the mountains adjacent to the coastline, at least 300 millimetres coming through for those locations here. Tully could see at least 300 or 400 millimetres. I reckon Innisfail will pick up about 400 or 500 millimetres from this weather event here, probably even more rainfall than that. And then for locations just on the coastline here, I think there's big swathe of 900 or even 1,000 millimetres of rainfall. I think that's going to be swung just a little bit further inland. It's going to be caught on some of the mountains here, and as such, there is a good chance that for some of the observations between Innisfail and Tully, this really does look like the go zone for the really heavy rainfall now, they could be seeing 1,000 or 1,100 millimetres or so. And even further up the coastline as well, Belen and Kerr, Fishery Falls, Gordonvale, these locations that do typically pick up some really good rainfall. I especially think for locations in mountainous regions south of Gordonvale down through Fishery Falls, Belen and Kerr and Buttlefree, they'll receive some really good rainfall as well, and definitely much more than what the forecast is suggesting. I reckon this swathe here of about 500 or 600 millimetres will get caught over here, but I reckon the runaway high totals will be around South Johnson and these areas through here. I'm really keen to see on what some of the rainfall observations are. There is, of course, the risk of some major riverine flooding with a rainfall event like this. We're talking about 1,000 millimetres of rainfall coming through over the course of a week, and again, that's a very valid number at this time. So if you do live in a very flood-prone area and you do normally experience ramifications from flooding on moderate or major riverine flooding days, then make sure you are preparing for this weather event right now. Definitely start thinking about getting your sandbags ready, thinking about moving livestock and valuable items to higher ground if you've got a second story as well. Maybe just get the worst of the stuff onto the second story just to be absolutely certain, because this is certainly going to be the wettest week since Tropical Cyclone Jasper of last year, and if it wasn't for Tropical Cyclone Jasper, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest rainfall events across the North Queensland area in 5 years. Yes, rainfall is North Queensland's middle name. I mean, of course, they're used to this sort of stuff up here, but 1,000 millimetres coming in a week, it's not unheard of, that's for sure, but it certainly doesn't happen every year, and I do need to stress that to a lot of people, because this sort of rainfall can catch a lot of people off guard. They've got that beautiful laid-back attitude up there of, it's just rainfall, it's 1,000 millimetres, it's nothing. Well, 1,000 millimetres when those rivers are already flowing and already getting close to full. I mean, Jasper came through when the rivers were completely empty, but now there are rivers, there's a lot of water in the rivers right now. Significant flooding and a lot of runoff is expected with this full 1,000 millimetres coming through. So again, it's going to feel like a lot more than 1,000 millimetres, I do imagine here. Don't panic, of course, do not stress with a weather event like this, but certainly start making the necessary precautions and preparations for the weather event when it does come through. And then just before we head off to a different part of the video, for the forecast for Townsville and Ayr, we're looking at about not 1,000 millimetres, rather about 100 millimetres or so. You can see Townsville here with about 100 millimetres of rainfall, just residual showers coming through. Hamilton Island and the Whitsundays as well, probably about 100 millimetres, and I do reckon around Proserpine they'll pick up a lot more than what the forecast is suggesting, especially if showers do swing around from the southeast. They could be seeing up towards 150 or 200 millimetres. The forecast hasn't really picked up on that at this time. Now, just before we talk about the southeast of Queensland, I just want to briefly touch on these tropical lows kind of in their own section here. So we are expecting them to develop. We're definitely expecting one to develop off the North Queensland coastline. And regardless of what the conditions are, this is expected to at some point get towards strong tropical low status here. It will also likely get to tropical cyclone status. I'm still hanging with about a 50-50 chance. I reckon there's a 35 or 40% chance of this system developing sometime in the next week, and then beyond that, beyond about Saturday or Sunday, then it's looking exceedingly likely that we see something in the way of tropical activity up there. The GFS has been pretty fond with it for the last couple of days. It's also been calling for a direct impact around the Townsville area sometime on the 29th or the 30th of January. I wouldn't really put too much weight into this forecast, though. The GFS has been really flip-floppy on this system, and the Eastern River as well has been really flip-floppy on a lot of these tropical systems. It's still calling for that Gulf of Carpentaria system, but I'm not trusting of the Eastern River right now across the North Queensland, even the Northern Territory areas. There's been too much change over the last couple of days to suggest a reliable forecast model in the Eastern River forecast model. That is the GFS as well, not really trusting. So I think the axis is going to give a very accurate representation of what's actually expected. You can see the tropical low forming up in the North Queensland coastline and then paralleling and skimming the Queensland coastline, bringing a lot of showers and wind. It's kind of a worst case scenario for a tropical low track, to be honest. I mean, it kind of delivers the worst of the tropical low to a lot of Queensland. But it doesn't really look like the axis is calling for a landfall at this time, and considering the steering currents, this is a completely valid track right out until about Saturday night, when it does start to become a little bit wacky on the axis G3's front. Again, we'll keep a very close eye on things. It's really hard to tell with what this tropical low is expected to do over the coming couple of days, and even if it will form offshore from North Queensland, it could form in the Gulf of Carpentaria or well out to sea off the Coral Sea. So we will keep a very close eye on things and be able to give you a definitive answer by Sunday afternoon, the forecast update then. But for now, it is still just a little bit too hard to tell, and there's a little bit too many discrepancies between forecast models for me to be able to give a forecast that I'm really confident in at this time, and I do apologise for that in advance, but that is the best we can do right now at CyclonesOZ, unfortunately. I don't want to be giving out bad information or fake information that's going to change, and I certainly do not want to be making people fear either. So North Queensland, yes, you've got rainfall coming through. Central Queensland, you've probably got a couple of showers coming through as well, but neither of you have the risk of a tropical cyclone right now in the forecast. There is, of course, that tropical cyclone cyclone on the forecast that could develop, but it's not a risk to land at this time, so make sure you are staying safe and staying cool, calm, and collected in a weather event like this. Just make sure everything is not panicking right now. That we can't be panicking about a system like this, especially when it's not even formed or not even on the official forecast at this time. I feel like I've made that very complicated, so if you've got questions or comments or queries, leave them in the comment section down below, or feel free to flick me an email as well. There's a link in the channel description. But let's go down to southeast Queensland now and talk about the thunderstorms and showers that are materialising over there. Now, today is a bumper setup. It's a boom setup for showers and thunderstorms across the southeast Queensland area. But the only thing kind of holding them back right now, they're expecting a really warm day. I mean, that goes without saying, but you can see there's a lot of cloud cover currently building across the southeast of Queensland. It's that high-level wispy cloud cover. So not only is it looking relatively unlikely that they're going to reach their maximum around Brisbane of 36 or 37 degrees that the forecast was suggesting. I mean, right now you'd be expecting temperatures well into the early 30s, well on the way to those high temperatures, that's for sure. But this cloud cover here is just going to prevent that evaporation on the ground that would give way to a significant thunderstorm outbreak. And I had a feeling that that was the reason why the forecast wasn't going absolutely nuts for thunderstorms later on tonight. Just give and take a look at this. The convective available potential energy values. The values are extraordinary across the southeast of Queensland later on this afternoon and evening. We're talking about values well above 3,000, up to about 4 or even 5,000 joules per kilogram of available air, and a tight low pressure system as well, a great dry line, awesome temperatures, and just a really good all-round environment for these thunderstorms here. But there's just not going to be that evaporation. It's going to be too dry in the atmosphere, and it also looks like that high-level cloud is just going to prevent those temperatures from getting to that nth level that we really need to start to see those really significant thunderstorms fire up. And you can see that on the forecast here. Cloud cover really inhibits those thunderstorms from developing across the southeast of Queensland. There could be some good thunderstorms tonight when the wind changes direction and swings in from the south. They'll most likely be offshore and sea breeze thunderstorms, so nothing really severe or nothing to write home about. And there'll also be some thunderstorms up on the Sunshine Coast, especially inland out towards Taroom and Eddiswold and Biloela. We'll also likely see some thunderstorms and potentially severe ones as well up around the Emerald, Dingo and Claremont area. And like I said, right down towards the Sunshine Coast as well, Bundaberg and Harvey Bay, some good thunderstorms possible down there. Possibly the chance of some severe thunderstorms and some gnarly severe thunderstorms as well. And I will keep my eyes very tightly locked onto that sea breeze that's going to swing around from about 8 or 9 o'clock into the Brisbane and the Gold Coast metro areas. About 8 o'clock for the Gold Coast and about 9 or 10 o'clock for Brisbane. That could spawn up some pretty good thunderstorms as well, so expect a couple of thunderstorms here and there into the northeast of New South Wales and into the immediate southeastern corners of Queensland around Gold Coast, and probably even further south of the Gold Coast as well. We may see a couple of thunderstorms swing up there from the sea breeze that's going to come through, but again, I don't really see the chance of them going wildly severe at this time. That's just something worth keeping in the back of your head. And then beyond that, nothing in the way of thunderstorms looking further and further out onto the forecast, at least of the southeast of Queensland. Some good stuff in the central coast and inland from the central coast from Mackay and Rockhampton tomorrow afternoon and evening. Also some great thunderstorms into the inland areas adjacent to Rockhampton and Bundaberg on Sunday afternoon as well. But the way of thunderstorms, it looks like we're going to have to be waiting well into early February for the next proper severe thunderstorm outbreak across the southeast of Queensland. And it looks like the next rainfall down there might come in a more tropical nature as well, depending on what tropical lows and tropical cyclones spin up in the Coral Sea over the next 10 days. We might be looking at some kind of tropical rainfall to start off the first week of February. That's looking really long range, and there is some big uncertainties around that. So again, take that with a very heavy pinch of salt. In fact, you probably want to take that with the whole salt shaker at this time. Depending on what stuff does form, though, we could be seeing a couple of good drops of rainfall out there. And just taking a look at rainfall accumulations nationwide, you can see that there's nothing really standing out for New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, and even South Australia. I mean, South Australia is beyond desperate for rainfall, and it's really a red flag when you see that the border with them and the Northern Territory is getting the bulk of the rainfall. They do desperately need a lot of the stuff over the next couple of months, and there's nothing really on the forecast for them, which is looking unfortunate. But for all of the people that say I don't do enough coverage across inland parts of Australia or other parts, well, we've got our hands tied up here with North Queensland, Southeast Queensland. If I wanted to go over every single location in Australia, I'd be doing a 2.5-hour webinar every morning. So unfortunately, I just don't have the means to do that. And of course, there's also nothing going on. So me saying, oh yeah, bright and sunny across South Australia, well, what's new? It's like that 360 days of the year, especially across the interior parts. So if nothing is said, just feel like the weather is going to be normal or close to normal, nothing really being out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary, though, is the heat over the southwestern corner of Western Australia. It's been brutal, and again, it is absolutely brutal this morning. Temperatures right now of about 31 degrees at my personal weather station, but the humidity is sitting at about 60%, so it's feeling a lot warmer than that. And the heat index yesterday, I don't know if anyone else was recording heat indexes close to mine, but in the Perth metro area, I'm just south of Perth, by the way, my heat index got to 54 degrees, coupled with humidity and no wind. And trust me, when I was outside, it felt every little bit of that. It was hot when I was outside yesterday. It was really, really warm. It reminded me of the Pilbara in the wet season. It was actually brutal, and it's heat that I've never experienced down in the Perth metro area. Really, really warm indeed. But yeah, let me know if you've been receiving some really significant heat index numbers like that. It was really quite crazy, and it really did take me back when I saw it. I did not expect it, that's for sure. Anyways, that is enough talk on the heat for Western Australia. It's pretty much all done. It will be a warm day today, but beyond that, it's looking cooler. We're also expecting a couple of showers to come through later on tomorrow by the looks of things throughout the southwestern corner of Western Australia. I'm not sure if they'll make it into the Perth metro area, but a few showers are possible here and there. So yeah, certainly the chance of some rainfall, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. It's probably only going to be a couple of drops of rainfall here and there, amounting to a couple of millimetres across the southwest Cape, so maybe 0.5 to 1 millimetre around the Perth metro area. Actually, we're not done with the heat. If you thought we could escape it, well, take a look at this. It's going to warm up again. Another west coast trough expected to build on Monday and Tuesday, culminating in a maximum on Wednesday for the Perth metro area, looking like it's going to be well into the 40s again, probably around 41 or 42, and into some of the northern and the eastern suburbs, probably pushing closer towards 43 degrees, and warmer in the wheat belt still. Thankfully, it's just a one-day maximum, and you can see temperatures do drop off there from about Friday onwards into the first week of February, and it does actually look substantially colder across the southwest corner of WA, which is very, very welcome to see. Also, in terms of tropical activity offshore from WA, yes, there is the chance of tropical cyclone activity. In fact, the forecast models have been really fond with a couple of tropical cyclones developing in the last couple of days of January into the first week of February between the Cocos Keeling Islands and Christmas Island. I'm expecting a monsoon trough to spin up a few tropical lows, which could turn into tropical cyclones up there. We'll also possibly see a couple of tropical thunderstorms and tropical rainfall events across the Kimberley over the coming couple of days as well, so expect some good rainfall up there. But in terms of a tropical cyclone impact on the WA coastline, don't expect anything, don't get your hopes up. There's nothing on the forecast right out into the first week of February, and then beyond that, it looks like we're going to move back into a lower energy period, and the tropical activity is going to drop off quite significantly until probably late February or early March. So at this time, it does look like we're heading into the last 2 weeks of tropical cyclone chances and tropical cyclone activity, and no major forecast model is suggesting West Australian impacts at this time right out until about February the 7th. The GFS has been pretty reliable over in Western Australia. They absolutely nailed tropical cyclone Sean, and I do believe that the GFS is going to once again nail the tropical forecast over the next 14 days, and again, they're not calling for anything significant offshore from Western Australia. It's really funny how that works. The Axis is a really good model over in Queensland, but if you try and use the Axis to make a weather forecast over in Western Australia, it's going to be wrong, and then wrong again. So we do actually need to be going through all the major forecast models across every part of Australia. The EastMOF is great for winter weather. The GFS tends to nail tropical cyclones, especially over in WA, and the Axis is really good pretty much exclusively for North Queensland, which doesn't actually make it a very useful model for Australia, but you get what I'm saying. We really do need to go over an eclectic mix of data for these videos. Thank you so much for watching the video to this point. On that note, it's certainly time for me to wrap it up, starting to waffle about behind the scenes stuff, so I don't want to give too much away over here at CyclonesOZ, but if you have enjoyed it, then please do consider leaving a like, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of the support is much appreciated. Plenty of new channel sponsors as well. Their names are on screen right now, and might I say, I also really appreciate all of the super thanks that people are leaving. There's like $2 or $3 tips here and there. It really does make my day. I love the push notification that I get, so thank you to everyone that's doing that. It really is much appreciated, and you absolutely don't have to. Send me an email as well, link in the channel description, but that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.